Hello and welcome to the Artists Make Money podcast, where artists get honest about their money habits. I'm your host, Vivienne Egan. I'm an interactive theatre and comedy producer, a podcaster, a freelance business writer, and a nosy Parker who wants to make space for artists to talk about the thing we're most afraid of, money. My guest for this episode is Bella Green, a comedian, sex worker, and writer. We had a great conversation about how she feels about money, the pros and cons of each of her income sources, and we also talked about the ups and downs of that feast and famine income, as well as where her money goes when she gets it. Bella, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Would you please introduce yourself to the listeners and tell them how it is that you make your money?
Cool. My name is Bella Green. I am a stand-up comedian. I'm a writer, and I'm a full-service sex worker.
And so I know this has completely shifted since lockdown. You're in Melbourne. It's been incredibly intense. But say in the before times, what kind of proportion of your income kind of came from each of those sources?
It's funny because I guess with comedy and writing, it's such a patchy kind of seasonal way of making money. Whereas sex work, I can kind of do anywhere, everywhere. I can be touring a festival somewhere and also just doing bookings during the day. So I guess the way I make money is really spread out, but I reckon maybe 25% is comedy and 75% is sex work.
That's pretty cool because you only started comedy quite recently. Is that
3 years ago?
3 years. Yeah. So I mean, going from 0 to 25% in 3 years is pretty impressive. And you've won a bunch of awards and all that kind of thing. And I thought I wanted to chat to you particularly for this project because I was your stand-up show, which I sadly never got to see, is literally called Bella Green is Charging for It. And I was
yes.
It's kind of pretty relevant. So I was wondering then, so I know where you are, sex work is kind of on the borders of legality, certain things are allowed, certain other things are not allowed. Does that change, what do you have to do with your money if it's sort of been made in this slightly, illegal way? How does that change what you do with it?
Well, I'm working pretty much within legalisation in Victoria, in Australia. It does kind of vary from state to state. It's completely illegal in South Australia. Whereas here, I can do it as long as I'm registered with the government and follow a bunch of really specific guidelines. So it basically just means I'm running a cash business. It means I'm making a lot of money in cash and I'm banking a lot of it and doing all of my own accounting.
Okay, so you're not having to do launder money or anything like that. That's good. That would be a heavy admin burden, I think.
It's probably a stray $100 bill underneath my mattress at the moment, but only one.
Excellent. So how did you manage during the super harsh lockdown, sort of financially? Because those main income sources just dried up overnight.
Yeah, completely, both. I have been on JobKeeper, which is our if you're an employee or a sole trader, you get $3,000 a month, or it was until recently. I thought about going into online sex work. Most of my colleagues got on OnlyFans and started webcamming and making porn. And I ordered a ring light from Amazon and it arrived. And I kind of looked at my own butt in the camera and was no, I don't want that. I think I'm really good at what I do. It's a perfectly fine butt. I just think what I do one-on-one in person is what I'm good at. I think selling something online, I felt not good. So I decided to just, tough it out with, look, let's be honest, toughing it out with $3,000 a month is not really toughing it out as an artist. I think for me, I was I can totally cost $3,000 a month. That's fine.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, I didn't know. It's pretty nice. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I was wondering what your kind of like feelings are about, so say in the comedy industry, there's a lot of people who work for very little, because that's kind of like what you do. Have you kind of brought any of your kind of sex work background in terms of the money, like I need to be paid this much for my time or whatever, or has it been a little bit more like, oh well, I have this other income source, so I can afford to do some of the free stuff?
Yeah, it's absolutely I can afford to do some of the free stuff. I don't know. I feel like a lot of women in comedy and arts, I feel not great asking for what I think I'm worth or saying no to offers, or, I wish I had that, like, no, I'm a kick butt sex worker. I wouldn't stand for that. I demand my, no, I don't. I'm like everybody else. I think I'm just a bit sheepish and don't like to assert myself when it comes to, I'm like, well, it is a really good opportunity. I guess that is great exposure. And surely if they could be paying me, they would. And yeah, I do all of that stuff. And thankfully I have like a super flexible job that, I don't know how people work normal, like 9 to 5s. I'm like, how do you do all of these things at once? Like,
yeah, totally. Well, so I do like freelance writing. So when I'm on tour, I can like write during the day, and
yes.
yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have something portable. It's very
Absolutely.
handy, for sure. And what are you like with your money when you get it? Like, do you spend it? Do you save it? What do you do with your money?
I'm really good with money, surprisingly so. I have never had a credit card in my life, which is mostly because I think I'd lived in a share house when I was like 17 and forgotten to take the phone bill out of my name. And then I was 18 and went to get a credit card and they were like, you have bad credit. So I've just never had a credit card. I cleared up my like bad credit pretty quickly. But yeah, so I've never been in debt, which is really nice. I don't have kids or anything expensive. Yeah, I like to buy frivolous things. I find with sex work, especially if I've done like a hard day, I like to soothe myself by buying trinkets online. I like to get home and be like, I'm buying myself a pretty dress. That was hard. But I'm responsible with money.
Are you saving for retirement?
Absolutely not. Okay, so I say I'm responsible. I do not have super. I have like 20K in super from like random civilian jobs that I worked in parts in my 20s, and that's it. I'm kind of hoping I become really famous.
That's everyone's escape plan, right?
Because that's all I've got.
Like, I'm getting famous, guys.
It'll happen. Like,
well, you are writing a book. I can see that. Is that your like chapters?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's all of my personal essays. Yeah, I'm writing a memoir. I've been told that there's no money in publishing and that I shouldn't expect that to do anything other than maybe help with other career opportunities. But
you never know. It might take off. It might be the new. What was that one that was in the 2000s? That was like
Diary of a Call Girl.
That one, yeah. And everyone was talking about it because it's scandalous.
Probably Billy Piper will be playing me in the televised version.
Totally. Have you seen I May Destroy You?
No.
Oh, there's a scene with post-its and stuff. And she's writing a memoir as well. Strong.
Well, having a PTSD response.
Yeah, maybe after you've submitted. So how did the book come about?
I did a fellowship at the Wheeler Centre, which is like the Centre of Literature and Ideas in Melbourne. I applied for like a writing grant basically, and I hadn't really done any writing other than stand-up jokes. And they had an application that was kind of like, why should we give you this prestigious thing? And I was like, because you should totally give it to a sex worker who wants to talk about like putting drugs in a Pez dispenser at the strip club and like, I don't know, just like give it to a hooker. It would be a really good idea. And for some reason they did. That actually happened. And then my editor of my memoir saw my show in Sydney and guess because I had the credentials of having had this fellowship with Wheeler Centre already, was like, do you want to write a book? And I was like, yes, I do. Yeah.
That's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like one of those things where you just don't know what doing one thing is gonna lead on to. It's kind of like just literally the whole like, just put yourself out there, babe. But like actually it does kind of work in this weird way.
I honestly feel that way about everything I've done in like arts and comedy. Like I was just like, I started off being like, maybe I'm going to take an improv free class, like just to try being on stage and see what it's like. And it's literally just been like a one thing has led to the other, like dominoes from there of me doing what I'm doing now.
I've heard people say that like often your career, like it makes sense in retrospect. So like you're like, oh, I'd like just did this random thing, but like, and then it kind of led to this other thing. And then you look back and you're like, oh, I see where I am now is like actually a sort of clear line of decisions that I made and choices and connections that I formed. But yeah, so I wonder, like in like 10 years, you know, maybe you will be famous. That'd be cool.
Hell yeah.
And it'll be like, and I'll be famous because you were on my podcast, and be like, yeah, before she was famous, she was on my podcast, and that's pretty cool. Did you get like an advance from the book?
I did. It works really. Do you know much about book advances?
Only a little bit. Tell me all about it.
It's so random. They give you like a third of it when you sign a contract. And then they give you, maybe this is just for me, but they're giving me the next third when I hand in the manuscript. And then I get another third when it actually like comes out on the shelf, which I was like, that's so weird. Like, surely the point of an advance is to like pay me to live while I'm writing said manuscript. Like, what's the point of me having already handed it in? Like, how was I supposed to feed myself up until that point, you know?
Totally. Yeah, especially like two-thirds of it coming after you've literally already done the job.
Yeah. I also don't know if people get book deals based off not having written a book already as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if it's, they're like, we don't know if she's actually going to write that book. So
maybe. I'm sure there's some risk analysis going on there where they're like, we'll minimize our risk. But hey, you're right. I've seen on Instagram you've got tens of thousands of words.
I have 63,500 words and I need 7.
What? You need so seven.
So I need 6,500 more words. I'm at 63.5 and it's 70 is my goal.
Nothing. You can knock it over a weekend.
You tell that last 6,000 words that, because that's not my experience of it at the moment.
Well, it's very impressive because you've been writing it like all through lockdown and stuff.
Yeah, it's the worst time to be creative. I don't know how I've done it at all. If I hadn't been given a really nice opportunity at that particular time, I don't think I ever, like off my own volition, would have gone, I think I'd like to write 70,000 words while stuck inside. Like, it sounds really nice in theory that you're like, cool, I'm locked inside, I'll write King Lear. Like, but I found having no external input, just, I'm like, what do I write about? What am I doing? What am I making? Like,
yeah, and like nothing, just no. It's the lack of variation that killed me. It's just like, why can't I go and do this in a cafe?
Writing memoir, you'd think it was all just stuff that's happened already, so it would be easier to just pull it out of the memory and write it. But I found there was like 1 month in June where we were kind of like released from lockdown before we got put back in, and I could work for like 4 weeks then. And I found just going and doing bookings, I was like suddenly flooded with all these memories of, remember that other booking you did that time, or, you know, made writing so much easier.
Yeah, right. And now that you're able to work again now, is that the case again?
No.
It's just those 6,000 words, 6.5.
I've just run out of excuses at this point. I'm at the like home stretch of it so badly that I'm like, there's a million reasons why it's not happening. Yeah.
What's your deadline?
December 31st.
Okay. That's like
doable.
couple of 100 words a day, right? I mean, I'm terrible at maths. It might not be.
I'm hoping it's like, I didn't go to university, but I understand that it's like 10% under or over.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think?
I used to like make the font bigger and like, you know, just spread it all out, but I don't think that will work with a publisher.
We'll give it a try.
Do you have any hang-ups about money?
Do I have hang-ups about money?
Like, I'm interested in sort of like, what emotions do you get when you think about earning money, or like when you get it, or like about deserving it or earning it, or like any of those things?
I feel a lot of like pull to be really generous with it. I think I grew up feeling like we didn't have a lot of money, and I felt like a bit of a sponge a lot of the time. I always felt like I was bumming money off other people, like getting someone else to buy them a round of drinks, or, you know.
Yeah.
And so when I have money now, I feel the urge to be the person who buys the round of drinks. So do that. I think I'm always quite caught up in the idea that I'm a scab, when I'm definitely not. I think it's also like the nature of how I make money as well. Sex work is so like, you either just made $2,000 or you haven't made anything for the week. Like, it's so hit and miss, that I've either got heaps of money or I don't. You know, I either need to be buying the round or have a round bought for me.
Sure.
And it could be at any given time.
How do you sort of manage the feast and famine? Because like, obviously, you know, comedy is the same. You're either swimming in gigs or you have nothing. Do you sort of like, are you just like, oh my God, I'm rich, and then, oh fuck, I'm poor? Or do you kind of like, do you try and sort of spread it out? Like, do you say pay yourself a wage? Do you have like a business bank account or anything like that? What do you sort of, how do you manage those peaks and troughs?
I definitely don't pay myself a wage or have my own business company or anything. I do just pay bills in advance religiously. I just have a separate bank account that direct debits come out of, and I sit there paying myself in advance. I'm like, I can pay next month's rent and I can pay February's rent as well. And just sitting there with my little notebook trying to get 2 months ahead constantly in case I want to like go to Adelaide Fringe Festival and not work for a month. Yeah. I get a kick out of it. I think I get the same kick out of being like, I'm buying that dress that I wanted, as I do being like, I paid off next month's rent already. Like, that's exciting to me.
That does sound exciting. And what a lovely gift to be able to give yourself, of being like, if I choose not to work at some later date, I will not work. Like, that's very cool. How often do you follow through on that? I mean, obviously sort of COVID, you know, except COVID, but like in general life, how often do you kind of take that opportunity to not work?
A lot in terms of like with comedy stuff for sure. Like, I think I was touring with my show from November to March when all the COVID stuff started happening last year. And I could just be like, oh, I'm in Sydney and I'm taking alcohol bookings between 2 and 4 p.m. and would take like one booking maybe 2 days of the week. And yeah, I literally worked at that pace the whole time. I was like, well, I'm not going to do a booking during the day if I feel like it's going to be a really stressful show that night. Like, I just worked really hard up until that. Sorry?
I said you can be a proper diva.
Yeah, absolutely. I gave myself permission to do so by working my butt off in advance, knowing that, I had paid for most things already.
Nice. What is your, I think I was going to ask what your best and worst money habits were. I think that's a really good money habit. So I'm going to ask you what your worst money habit is.
Do you want me to say on your podcast that I had to move like a dinner plate and a $50 note off my dining room table so it wasn't in the background? Let's get a bag. Why not? We've had a few beers. Let's get a bag. It'll be fine. No, it's cocaine, definitely. Yeah. Mhm.
Fair enough. I'm glad that you could identify it. So
Edit that if you need to.
yeah. Do you have a different best money habit that you'd like to identify?
A different best money habit?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think paying stuff in advance, trying to save money when I have money, and attempting to pay my quarterly tax bill in advance instead of having it loom over my head is probably as good as I get.
Yeah, that's nice. I have to do this tax because I live here, but I also have to like file a tax return in Australia. I have to like declare, because I've got like a student debt. I have to declare like my income in the Australian tax year, which is different from the UK tax year. I have to declare my global income. I just have to tell them what it is, but then they'll like figure out if I need to pay back my debt based on that. But like I've just been putting it off for months and months. And my friend was like, don't forget that once you've done it, it won't be looming anymore. Like you don't have to having to like, oh fuck, I got to do that. So that it's nice that you're able to like do that for yourself, because I'm just like just don't open the email, don't look at it.
I have been a little bit recently, actually. I think post-COVID, I've just been like, because we've been getting this JobKeeper supplement from the government, but as a like sole trader, I have to pay my own tax out of that. And of course, it's been so kind of hand to mouth that I haven't been like, let me take aside this percentage, which I will now pay immediately into my tax account. I've been like, no, I'm spending all of that money.
Yeah.
And now I'm just starting to look at what next year's tax return will look like when I have not paid any tax but made $3,000 from the government every month. I'm like, oh,
that's annoying that they're still taxing you for like relief money.
Department. I'm like, why don't you just take the tax out for me? Don't make me do this.
Yeah. What are your financial goals?
Before I started comedy and sex work was just kind of my full-time gig, I was like vaguely saving money in the idea of a house deposit. Like I didn't really have any huge life goals other than I was like, it's going to suck to have to do sex work when I'm like 65 to pay rent. Like maybe owning somewhere to live in would be nice. Mm-hmm. And that was just like a vague goal I had. Mm. And then I started doing comedy and I felt like my life kind of made sense, and that the reason I was working was to fund being able to do this, which is what I still do. And now I no longer really have much in my savings account, nor will I ever own a house, but I only work enough to support the time I want to spend performing and writing. And yeah. So when I say I make like 25%, 75% out of comedy and sex work, it's like I probably could be making like a lot more of that 75%. I've just chosen to kind of do as minimum hours as I have to fund comedy and writing.
Totally. So do you see yourself like shifting that balance even more as the comedy and writing become more? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to. That's the dream.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, would you like ever quit sex work? And I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I can't see myself ever being in a position where I didn't want to do even like, oh, I have this really good regular who I see for $1,000, once a fortnight. I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to be making comedy money where that's like something to sneeze at. I don't know.
But then you never know. You might get a Netflix special.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they pay, but who knows? Yeah, so it's kind of like you're building what will hopefully be a life raft that you can be doing comedy when you're 65. That will probably be a little bit more palatable.
Yes. I'm less likely to kill the audience than I am my clients. Yeah.
Yeah, but I suppose in general though, comedy is also kind of like a young person's game to a certain extent, unless you like really cut through. So do you feel like there's some kind of like pressure to sort of build that? It's like you could be doing it at 65 if you're at that sort of national treasure kind of level, right? Yeah. So you need to be like jumping up into the big, no pressure.
I'm kind of Peter Pan though. Like I don't know. I still live and act and feel like I'm 25. So
you look like you're 25.
Thank you. I was looking at, I don't know about this light that's going on in my house right now, but thank you. Yeah, no, I'm 35 and I do not live like it in any way, shape or form. I just am kind of in denial about the realities of my age.
Well, I think that's a lot of artists though, right? John, my partner, for people who are listening and don't know him, he just turned 35 and it's like he is also very youthful looking and very kind of like very baby face, and he's like playing, you know, video games and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I think, you know, our generation is very much redefining what youth is and how old you get to be and still be young. Like, you know, think about, I don't know about your family, but like my parents, when they were my age, I mean, they had me quite fairly late. Like I was 1 when my mum was 35, but like they looked, like in the pictures, they looked middle aged.
I'm the same, definitely.
Yeah.
I just moved out of my first share house at 35. This is my big grown-up thing of the year. I'm like, I live alone now.
I'm incredibly impressed.
I am too. I didn't think I'd ever do it.
Yeah. And I suppose that makes it like a nicer kind of outlook for if you sort of choose to Peter Pan it, you can you can live youthfully for as long as you like. Really?
Yeah, actually that's my best money tip. Go and live in like a 4-bedroom dump in Brunswick with a bunch of other artists and pay like $560 a month to have like no working oven and a back door that doesn't lock properly. Like just live in the scungiest share house possible. That saves heaps of money. Yeah. I'm suddenly like, I have to pay all the rent by myself, just me a month. That's crazy.
What like sort of percentage of your income has that like become now? Your rental?
Oh, you keep asking me about percentages, Viv, and I'm just
sorry.
like, work like that. It's a lot. It's a lot more than it was before. Before rent was it was like $600 a month, and I kind of laughed at it. And now it's more than double that. And yeah, it's slightly terrifying. It's still very doable.
Do you see yourself as running a business?
Yes, 100%. I run 2 businesses. Yeah. I'm very proud to do so, especially with sex work, because I think it's seen as some kind of lazy or easy money. And I'm like, no, to be good at sex work, you are definitely running your own business and you know how to market and hustle and do your own accounting and, you know, it's run your own social media. It's like any other business, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, anyone who follows you on Instagram knows that it's not a lazy, easy job. Do you ever meet like people in the comedy circuit who are like, oh, maybe I could do that and like fund my comedy?
No one specifically has from comedy, but I get like, I had a girl I met after a gig last week from the audience come up and ask me for advice. And I was just like, you were very, she was like 25, but I was like, I don't know if I should be giving impressionable people life advice on sex work. But yeah, people do. And civvy friends often like to confess that they're like, do you think I could do it? Like, would I make money? Like, I'm like, yeah, everyone can. You're fine.
Interesting. What kind of defines a civvy friend?
Oh, like a non-sex worker. Yeah, civvies or muggles, but I guess we're over JK Rowling now, so we don't call them muggles anymore. Yeah, civvies. People get so offended when you call them a civvy.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you're not in the know? Like we're in an in-group and we understand, you are in an out-group and you don't understand?
Yes, and that's what I liked about muggles so much as well. I think that encaptures it really well.
Yeah.
Very much like we have a secret club and you don't know about it. It's special.
Yeah, totally. And people are a bit like jealous and they're curious and they're like, maybe I could be magical as well.
Oh God, I love that.
If money were no object, how would you spend your time?
Ooh. God, it's so different now. You can't travel or go anywhere, isn't it?
Let's imagine we're in a completely post-COVID world, like, completely hypothetical.
For me, I would love to just be touring all the time. Like, I'm such a baby to like the festival circuit and stuff, but I did, like 4 months of the last 2 years around Australia, and I was just like, oh my God, imagine if I could go to Edinburgh. Like, imagine if you just did this all year. Like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Like, my goals are pretty small still. I'm just like, I just want to do festivals for like 9 months a year. That would be cool.
I mean, yeah. I mean, whenever I'm touring, I'm just like, let's do this forever. It is so much fun. And you would kill it in Edinburgh. Definitely.
I want to go so bad. Yeah.
I think they're not doing it next year. I think they've already said that it's not going to happen, or like if it does, it'll be a very like small thing. But who knows? Maybe it'll be like, get your vaccine and you can come to the Fringe. But yeah. But well, I very much hope that you're able to come soon, because it is a lot of fun. I mean, it's also very rough and hard and all those things. What financial mistakes have you made?
Ooh, I think the superannuation one is probably massive. I think the fact that I have no retirement plan whatsoever and have just gone, oh, maybe I'll get famous one day. Like, that's probably a terrible idea. I hear a lot about, is it like women in their like 50s and 60s kind of retirement age have like a massive risk of homelessness. And I'm like, yeah, that's just something that's I put no thought into and just assume I'll be okay somehow.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's compulsory in Australia, so we think a lot about it, but it's not compulsory to save for retirement here in the UK. So yeah, so like your employer will, if you have a 9 to 5, your employer will probably offer to like, some retirement savings, but it's not required by law, and it's not required at all if you are self-employed. So I think a lot of artists here, like $20,000 would seem like loads to them because they might never have put anything away for retirement, which is, yeah. So I'm kind of trying to mount a crusade where I get artists to start like putting money away in their retirement funds.
That is a very good deed. I think you should definitely do that.
Well, like $20,000 is nothing to sneeze at. Like, I know it's not like what you should have at this stage, but it's like definitely not nothing, and it has a lot of time to like increase in value. So, I reckon just start like chucking in $100 a month. If it's like just like a small but regular amount, can't hurt.
We had the option to withdraw it.
Yes.
And I was just like, well, yeah, duh, why wouldn't I take that $20,000 that like climate change is going to happen before I see that $20,000? So I put it to like the Brains Trust on Facebook, and everyone was like, no, Bella, you're so dumb. Don't take money out of superannuation. That money gets bigger somehow. Like, it'll be a lot one day. And I'm like, well, no one has really explained to me how or why, but you're all a lot smarter than me. So I will leave the $20,000 alone. Sure, I get it.
I'm very glad you did that. So part of my freelance writing work, I do a lot of like personal finance writing and stuff like that, and like explaining like what compound interest is and how it like kind of accumulates, in that kind of fashion. And it's like, I read somewhere once that it's like the human brain isn't actually equipped to understand, what's it called when it goes up like that? Exponential growth. Like, we can understand linear growth that goes like that. It's like I put in $100 and then I put in another and I've got 200. But we don't understand this like compounding thing where it's like it kind of spins upwards in this curve. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't fully understand it myself, but I can write about it. That's what it does. That's what it does. If you were giving some advice to someone who, like, to baby Bella, maybe baby comedy Bella, what money advice would you give her? Or baby sex worker Bella? maybe let's start with that.
Oh God, I would tell baby sex worker Bella to start saving money and not just spending it all. I definitely started out like just making it, and especially like I was working in brothels all the time then. So I would just do a shift and an amount of money would appear depending on how busy or not busy it was. And I knew that I could just spend all that money and then just roster myself on again for the next day. It's not like an ordinary job where you've got set hours and the pay comes in at a set time, or, you know, this is like if you want more money, you just work for another 12 hours. But then, of course, when you need money and like rent's due and you're like, it's due tomorrow and I've got to do this shift, that's when the brothel is dead and nobody comes in and there's no money. So it takes you a really long time, I think, to work out that it's not just free money that you can just spend and then make again the next day. I haven't been very good at it this year because, you know, COVID, blah, blah. But generally for a while, I was doing the 10% rule of just like saving 10% of everything I made straight away. And of course, have dipped into those savings a million times. But at least I used to consistently do that. I think I need to get back into that for sure.
Yeah, I wonder how many people were like getting into good money habits in like all kinds of different ways, and then like, fuck, I got to spend that emergency fund that I just built up.
Yeah,
that's what it's there for.
I was shocked by how many people were like, I've saved so much money during this lockdown. I'm like, do you not buy things on the internet? Like, yeah, that's all I've
I know. For me, it was a lot of takeaways, a lot of food. Yeah. It's like, it's so joy.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say?
Same. I don't cook at all. That's actually probably my worst money habit. I refuse to cook and I get all meal delivery.
Yes, that will add up quickly. What have been your biggest financial milestones? Like, what point do you kind of go like, I'm like managed this thing happened, and like you can look back at that and go like, oh yeah, that's really amazing.
I think buying my first car, which I didn't get my license till I was 30. But I scrimped and saved my money together until I was a person who owned a car. And like before that, I don't know, there's a certain something about, I don't own anything else that's worth as much. And not that I have a particularly fancy car, it's just a secondhand bomb. But yeah, I think it's the one thing I've got that's worth, you know, insuring. So yeah, I think that was my tipping point of like being a person who had saved a proper amount of money.
Fantastic. I'm starting some driving lessons on Monday.
Congratulations. It's so freeing.
Yes, that is kind of what I'm looking forward to. Oh, I didn't ask you what your advice for baby comedian Bella was.
I would tell her to do everything exactly the same. I think it's really nice to not work that much to do something that you truly are passionate about and love doing, like bugger saving for a house. Like this is exactly where I should be. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it so much.
Maybe she could cook. That's
like yes, learn some simple dishes. I'll send you some recipes. I love cooking.
Oh, I hate it. It's not for me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad that baby comedian Bella was on exactly the right track.
Yeah, to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning into the Artists Make Money podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Artists Make Money, where you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. You can find me on Twitter at Vivienne41. And you can find Bella on Instagram at Bella Greenery. And believe me, she is a very interesting person to follow. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love it if you could rate and review on Apple Podcasts or tell a friend, because I'd love to get the word out about the show. The theme music for this show was composed by Tiiva. That's Tiiva. You can check them out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify. Being an artist is hard, and making a living from it is even harder. But I believe in you. Keep going.